Next week is Dystopian Wars week, and we'll have 3 Crown starter sets to be won. We will choose 3 winners, 1 from the comments on our YouTube videos, 1 from the comments on OnTableTop.com, and 1 from our Cult of Games members, so you guys get an extra chance to win.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to be taking a look at how you can get started in version 4 of Dystopian Wars. So if you've been a previous player, you may already have fleets and you're just looking to get up to speed with the new edition. There's a few different ways you can do that. First off, the living rulebook and all the ORBATs, the orders of battle for each fleet, are all available on the internet via PDF. So you can go there and get started immediately. But there are a few changes to Dystopian Wars, mostly in the form of the card deck, but you can get those as physical products as well. So as you can see, I've got the delightful new Dystopian Wars rulebook right here. I've got the Victory and Valor deck. And if you need all the bells and whistles, then we have the Rules and Gubbins set. So this is the big one. We're going to take a look at it in more detail. If I flip it over, you can see that contained herein are the rules, the templates, tokens, objectives, and your 2 sprues of the new SRS, along with your critical dice, and the Victory and Valor deck. So compatible with everything. If you've seen a fleet that you like and you want to get started in version 4, then you can grab that fleet and this set, and it will give you everything you need to start playing one of the factions therein. Okay then, we have a leaflet about Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash, the land-based game of epic scale warfare within the dystopian age. We have our Victory and Valor deck, which is very nice, very nautical theme, as you might imagine. We have the critical dice. You have a set of 6 of these, which you roll when critical damage has been inflicted on one of your vessels. And they have a host of effects, each one of which is distinguished by a specific symbol on the die there. So we have a hazard, we've a couple of steering locks, we even have a system failure and structural failure, which is not great, but those are how you roll them. Best not to let anything happen to your boats is an easier way of doing it. We also have a bag of 20 of the custom dice for Dystopian Wars. Custom dice are, as you might imagine, differently faced. So there are different results you can get on them. You can get blanks, which are terrible for anybody. You can get standard strikes, which is a single red explosion. A heavy strike is a double red explosion. The big anchor there is your critical strike. And then the blue shields are heavy counters. And there's also a singular counter as well. So very simple, all dice rolls are done with those. And those 2 die types are all you need for the game. Then we have our Dystopian Wars rulebook. So nice bit of kit. We'll look at that in a bit more detail in a moment. We have 2 sets of tokens. Sheets are double-sided, allowing you to mark multiple damage, especially when it comes to things like systems off or structural damage. You can mark off, flip the counter, has 2 on it. So reduces the amount of tokenage you're going to have. Then we also have the large sheet that has things like status effects and other ongoing concerns that you need to worry about, as well as just generic game markers. Can be used for damage, can be used to keep track of your victory points, whatever you need. They're on 2mm cardstock, and a nice linen finish to them as well. In the box we have 3 sprue types. We have this main sprue, which has 4 large objective markers, which are 40mm. We've a turning arc, and then we've got 4 pieces of slot together range measuring. So can use a tape measure, but these will keep you up to date anyway. And when assembled, you can also use it as an arc marker as well for lines of fire, arcs of fire, that sort of thing. So it's this jolly fellow. I quite like the fact the turn marker makes a little nose and a smiley face, which once seen cannot be unseen. And then excitingly, we have the final 2 sprues, which are the new sprues for this Gubbins set. Both the same. They have with them 8 SRS tokens. So 1 for each of the current factions. So you've got your Empire, Enlightened, Imperium, Sultanate, the Alliance, Crown, and Union. Everybody gets one. And then with them are a host of additional turrets for your vessels and rigs, because these will also fit on the rigs that are produced that can be used as battle platforms. So if you're after extra gun batteries for the Crown, or extra shield generators, or rocket batteries, all of those things are on these sprues. So it's a nice little addition. And obviously with Dystopian Wars, there's a lot of components that can be changed up to change the type of vessel you have. So if you are playing and using them as a type, a specific, maybe gun battery heavy vessel, and then want to change that to rockets, there's some nice options in here. For people who haven't seen the SRS tokens before, I bring those in. These are the 8 of them clipped off. In game terms, they represent either a wing of fighters, or sometimes some form of drone or submarine, or even aggressive animal that's been cybernetically enhanced. Enlightened, what are you up to with your wheels? But they can be deployed from various carrier craft or subs to be launched at your opponent. 1 designates a single strength token, an SRS token. However, you can stack them up onto bases, and then with multiple bases, that would become a stack of 3. You can get quite high stacks if you want. What I find is helpful is if you reprime some of these bases into another color like red, or even white, and then your reds can be 5s, your whites can be 10s, and then blacks can be singles, because you can get some quite big token stacks in the grand scheme of things when you're playing around. But there they are. They're all nicely detailed. I think they've been retooled from the old SRS tokens, so they're not exactly identical. They're just a bit more fleshed out, but an excellent way of getting your hands on more of those very necessary tokens, because I'm a big fan of the Crown and their massive carrier fleets, at which point you want to have all of that going on. The other plastics then, we have little turning marker, which allows you to move up to, well, a 90-degree turn in increments depending on the speed of your vessel. And then we have the range rulers, which are hinged components. And this allows you to also turn it into a 90-degree arc, so that you can get your arcs of fire out the side of the ship, particularly handy when you're broadsiding. With the 4 you get in there, you can actually extend. So the second set is double-sided. So you can have your 1 to 10, I suppose, is the sort of the standard setup. But then if you attach another set, you can go out, because they are double-sided. So here we're up to 15 inches So each of those little rulers can be assembled. There's two separate ones, one for you and one for your opponent if you need to check arcs, or you can flesh it out to a larger measuring stick. And then our objective markers on one side, you've got the large cog, which is just an ongoing leitmotif for Dystopian Wars. And then on the other side, they are numbered. So depending on scenario, you might be playing one where the objectives are worth different values, or you might be looking for a specific missing thing on a token that you're unaware of. So you might place them face down and you'll be looking for objective 1 and then have to get there and secure it before you flip them over to discover what you were looking for is not at that objective. Nice 40mm tokens. Looking at the last of the small things then, our deck of victory and valor cards. So it is, like I said, nautically themed on the deck back, which is nice. Standard playing card size if you like to sleeve your cards. And then the cards themselves are used in several ways. First off, we have the number at the top, which is used for randomization or initiatives. So you may be bidding on something and you might want to play a 12 rather than a 1 to get your turn before your opponent. And then we also have the two types of card effect. So we have Valor and Victory. One is an in-game effect that can be used. So in this case, after making a critical damage roll, you can reroll any number of critical damage die. So when you haven't quite sunk that enemy vessel, you might give yourself another go with this. However, you can also use it as victory points. So at the end of your withdrawal step, some victory points or score victory points equal to the total mass of the models that withdrew during this step. So that's an interesting one. Using these is key to the game because you are limited in certain numbers and certain values of card. So if you burn through all of your high cards, you may discover that you're lacking later in the game. If you score a lot of victory points early on, it will then hand your opponent the ability to use the Valor section of their cards later. And I believe there are multiples of some types of Victory and Valor card, but they don't have the same initiative value on them. So when you're playing then, you might actually decide to hang on to a certain card just to keep the initiative in your hand, because you never know when you're going to require that late game. So that's the main cut and thrust of the Victory and Valor deck, which is very necessary indeed. Finally, and most importantly, we have the rules. So it's an A5 rulebook. This is the brand spanking new version 4. And as I say, it is available as a living rulebook as well. 275 pages long. As you can see, a comprehensive index at the rear, which I adore, for I am that type of person. You get things that may come up more often than not in your heavy print or the bold print. So when you're looking what is an action roll, which is the core mechanic of the game, and then breaks down across the pages what you're doing within those steps. So potentially, if you're worried about the re-rolls, when do they come in, how do they come in, it's all done like that. Starting off, we have our contents and what is the dystopian age from a theatrical point of view, shall we say. And then how to use this book. So this is interesting. They have a very specific way the book has been laid out this time around. Throughout the book, so you'll get specific terminology used, and there are also box outs that you can refer to either supplemental rules or rules that are connected or something else that may be integral that they didn't want to have floating elsewhere. So the book layout, I think, is a big improvement and also one of the core features of this new version. All the bits we've been through there, your counters, tokens, and paraphernalia. And then how a game's played out, scale, play area, scenario, all of that good stuff. So it really leads you through the basics of what a game is, how to lay it out, how to play the game, how to score objectives, all of the things that you may take for granted if you're already a player or a wargamer in general. But if this is your first war game, it's the stuff that we take for granted that sometimes confuse people when something isn't stated or explicitly explained. So here we go. We have your game mechanics, weapon types, targeting arcs, generators for hard points, whether they're shield generators, guardian generators, whatever, and then the core rules broke down into, like I say, section by section in game terms. Here's a good example of sort of a box out. Play fair. It may seem strange that overlapping a model with a different positional trait grants you a small speed boost, but this is a necessary abstraction to keep the game running smoothly. Taking advantage of this, for example, lining up underwater models to get your battleship across a playable area quickly, is against the spirit of the game and is heavily discouraged. So, I mean, you can do it. If your opponent does it all the time, maybe have a quiet word with them and refer them to that part. And then here we have things like resolving a collision and then ramming, which is an advanced rule. Rams cannot be declared when playing with the core rules. So all these design choices that they've made when they've put the book together, I think will really make learning the game much simpler, and then also not running afoul of advanced rules being overly complicated. They can be boxed off and kept separate from the core system itself. So our first 59 pages, is your core rules. Then it goes into what a round is, how it's played, the phases within it, and then how you activate. So as far as a beginner rulebook goes, it's perfectly laid out and should make life much simpler for anybody getting involved in gaming as a whole. Our full rules end, if I get past the SRS, and our play area. Here we go. Our rules end around about 121. And then we get into how you play the game. So starting with force selection, what a battle fleet is, how an order of battle or an orbat is used. Then setting up your play area and how to build encounters. And there's a few different ways that you can play. So small, medium, and large encounters have different play sizes. There's common encounters, which would be some of your basic games, small blockade runs and that sort of thing, with primary and secondary and even tertiary objectives in some cases. And then we have the meat and potatoes of your background. So each of the factions get a healthy dose of background and lore, often presented in an interesting way, generally presented in world, which is a feature of Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash, where it's not just a dry, the crown are X because they ... Instead you get sometimes a background of the faction from within the faction. Sometimes you get it from an outside faction looking in, so maybe some Imperium spies or military giving an assessment of them from a particular point of view, which I think is a really interesting way of doing it. So lovely new artwork in here as well. But across the board we get all 8 factions get their day in an interesting way, and it really exposes you to the world of the Dystopian Age and Dystopian Wars, you get a feel for the faction beyond just the dry tables of stats and silhouettes of ships. So the final chunk then is back into our reference sheets. So what each of the tokens are, measurement scales, dice results, disorders, action roll charts, and then a page for notes. If you and your friends come up with anything or have any questions, or there's something that constantly comes up for you that isn't referenced in the quick reference sheets, just pop it in there. But yeah, a 275 page book, and it's an absolute corker. There will be possibly amendments over time, whether it's for rules clarifications or if something happens in the future that a rule needs to be tweaked or changed. You can look at the living rulebook online. It's currently sitting at version 4.00, the same as the rulebook. If that number changes, then there's been an amendment or errata or a typo has been fixed, whatever it happens to be. You can keep a track there. Whenever an errata comes out, because I'm very old school, I would tend to go into my own copy of a rulebook with a pen and amend it in there. And it's something else you can use the notes page for at the back. But there we go. That is how you can get started in the 4th edition of Dystopian Wars, whether it's from the full Gubbins set or whether you just pick up the rulebook and the Victory of Valor deck separately. If you've already got a fleet and you're good to go, there's many ways you can get involved in gaming now. Let me know what you think below, folks. Until next time, bye-bye.
Next week is Dystopian Wars week, and we'll have 3 Crown starter sets to be won. We will choose 3 winners, 1 from the comments on our YouTube videos, 1 from the comments on OnTableTop.com, and 1 from our Cult of Games members, so you guys get an extra chance to win.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and while you're at it, why not hit subscribe, and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it, go on.